Hi there, it's Mindy from My Creative Scoop, and I'm back with another Copic marker coloring tutorial for Neat and Tangled. This month I'm using this brand new stamp set called To the Stars. It's really super duper cute. So I've gone ahead and colored some of these fairies here, and I'll list all of the colors in the description below. But today we're actually going to be focusing on hair, and I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite hair color combos. So let's get started. The first image I'm going to be coloring is this one right here, the little green one, and I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite blonde. So this is more of a realistic blonde, not necessarily a real yellowy blonde or cartoon-like color. So I'm going to be using E41, E42, E43, and just a little bit of E44. I'm going to start with my E43, and we're just going to go ahead and trace the lines that are already there. And also each time the little hair kind of goes up, so right in each of those little corners, we're going to pull the color up a little bit more, kind of like when we do pleats. So I'm just going to trace this going down and a little bit behind her ear, and then I'm just going to trace the lines that are there, trace back in here where her little part is, and also right behind her wing. And then I'm going to come up and I'm going to start making little flicks so that way I have a little bit more texture to the hair. So I'm going to come up, and right where there's a lot of white, I'm going to go ahead and add another little strand going down and maybe one coming up, just to kind of give it a little bit more texture. So down here I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to kind of make a shadow right behind the wing, and then I'm going to pull the color down a little, also going up in just a few spots. So that way there's just a little bit more texture. So, and it's going to be this pretty much the same spots that I'm doing this for each color. It's just the color combo is going to change. So that was with E43. So now I'm going to take my E42 and I'm just going to pull the color through a little bit. So it's going to be a very subtle change, but I'm going to drag out these lines just a little bit. So when I color hair, I like it to have that real hair texture, so I don't blend it out too much. So now I'm going to take my E41, and notice I still have a lot of white on there. So now I want to take the lightest color, so the E41, and I'm just going to go over without blending any of those colors out, so that way I could still see those lines. And I'm just going to very lightly just do one stroke over, so that way there's no more white. And now I'm going to take my E44, and you just want to use a little bit of this color. So right at the top here where I started to add that little line, I'm just going to make a small little flick. And the same thing on those little lines, and then coming down. So I'm just adding just a tiny bit of color everywhere where we first started with that E43. So a little color really goes a long way here, because we are going to drag out the color with the next lighter color. So just a tiny bit of change there. So now, since I don't want to really go over and blend that out, and I want to keep this more of a blonde, I'm going to skip between colors. So we did the E44. If we were coloring a larger area, I would have gone to my E43, but since it's such a small area, I'm going to skip between colors. So now I'm going to go back down to my E42, and I'm going to drag out that E44 just a little bit more, pulling some of that color down and softening up that E44 that we just added. Okay, so that is it for this one, but since she has a wing and I want to make it look like it's transparent, I'm going to go ahead and take my E42, the one that I just dragged out that E44 with, and I'm going to continue the line right where, so these hairs are going to meet. And then I'm going to continue each of these lines that are right here so they meet. So it's a little filled in, but not too much. That way we can still see those definitions, because the wing is going to make it look like it's lighter. So now I'm going to take my E41, and again, I'm just going to do one stroke over, filling in the wing, giving it a little bit more of a hair color. So that way it looks transparent. So let's go ahead and color this next image. I'm going to use the same color combo, but this time we're not going to use as much as of the light color. We're going to use more of the darker color, so that way we have more of a brown tone. So this is going to be a really good color combination for brunette. So it's also really great because then you're using the same color combination, and you don't necessarily feel that pressure where you have to have so many different colors, especially if you're just starting out buying your Copics. So I'm going to start again with my E43, and I'm going to do the exact same thing we did over here. I'm going to pull the color down in all of those areas where we first added it, but I'm going to lay down my ink this time a little bit thicker since we want it to be a little darker. Okay, and now again I'm going to go ahead and go over it with my E42, again laying down that color a little thicker so that way it fills in more, so we have less white. So that way it ends up being a little darker than our blonde over here. Notice I'm still leaving white gaps because now when I go over with my E41, all of these white areas, it's still going to be a nice highlight. So add that layer all the way over so there's no more white showing. And now we're going to go back with E44, a little thicker this time. And then I'm going to go back with my E42. We're skipping colors since there's less room. And I'm just going to give a couple of little flicks so that way I still have some of those highlights, but I'm darkening it rather than leaving so much of it lighter. So it has a little bit of a difference. If you feel like it's a little bit too light and you want to go a little darker, now go back to your E43. So you could gradually work the color going a little bit darker each time. It's better than just going ahead and adding that E44 and then not liking how dark it came out. So if you're still not happy with it at this point, now you can go back and add just a little bit more of that E44 just to give it that extra definition and depth. So instead of using the E42, we're going to go ahead and take the E43 and add that color behind the wing. So I'm going to pull the color so that way the hair meets so we see where it ends. And then I'm going to come up and give a little flick going up each of these hair strands that we've created. And now I'm going to take my E42 this time and do one stroke over, filling in the wing. So that way it has that transparent look. Okay, so now on to our third image. Okay, so for our little purple fairy, we're going to give her really vibrant red hair. So I'm using R59, R39, R35, and R32. We're going to start with the R39. And again, we're going to go back to those same areas where we first added those lines. So I'm just going to give a little trace, a little flick where each of those strands are, and I'm also going to create some new ones. We want to give a little shadow underneath the wing. And then we're going to take the R35 and continue that color, dragging out the E39, or I'm sorry, R39, making it a little thick. Now I'm not going to fill it in just yet. We're going to go back and add a little bit more. So when I go back and use when I use darker tones, I like to go back to the darker color before I cover up the lightest point. Because if I were to add the R35 all over it right now, when I go back the next time, it's just going to be that much darker. So I want that still to have that really nice highlight. So we will touch that up in just a few minutes. So I'm going to take my R59 now, and I'm going to go back over those strands that we created and to deepen them just a little bit more. And then again with my R39, still leaving it very streaky. It looks always very messy. Every time I color hair, it always looks like a mess. And then when you go back over it and add that last coat, it really just pulls it all together. So now I'm going to take my R35 and just do that one stroke over, filling in all of that white. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and do that highlight. So I'm going to take my R35. I have a little bit over here that I want to fill in. And I'm going to connect those lines right here and then come up. And then I'm going to take my R32 and do the one stroke over. That way it looks a little bit lighter and it shows and it stands out a little bit more from the hair, so it looks transparent. Moving along, we're going to go ahead and color this little blue fairy next. And we're going to use, we're going to make her hair orange, so let's go ahead and get out the YR09, YR04, and YR12. I'm going to start with my YR09, and we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to follow these lines. We're going to make that line right underneath her wing. Now let's take YR04, pull those lines down a little bit more, still keeping it really streaky so that we have all those little white gaps so we can have a nice natural looking highlight. And now we're going to take the YR12, do one stroke over, and now I'm actually going to go back and repeat, since orange is so vibrant and it's kind of hard sometimes to get those nice lines. I want to go back and define the strands that we created a little bit better. So I'm going to go back and add a couple more little lines, deepening them back up. And again with the YR04, this time I'm going to very streaky, just kind of add a couple flicks here and there, so that way I'm not covering up all of the light. I still have some of those highlights, but it softens up some of the orange, and you can see that it really kind of pulls it together. So now I'm going to take my YR04, connect this line here so we make that transparency for the wing, connect these lines going up, and then I'm going to take my YR12, do one swipe over, and I did lay down all my colors first. It's very light for the wings, but again, go look down towards the bottom. I'm going to list each fairy what all of their full color combinations are. So there we go. We have our orange hair, and let's go ahead and move on to this cute little pink fairy. So we're going to make her hair a dark brown, but it's gonna have some, it's gonna look more like a brownish red, so like kind of like an auburn. So we're gonna use E25, E23, E17, and a little bit of E29. I'm gonna start with my E25, and again, we're gonna go ahead and create those lines. Make a line all the way underneath the wing again. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my E23. I'm going to pull the color through, making a couple more little lines in between, making it really streaky. Now I'm going to go with my E29. We're going to skip filling it in so that way we still have those highlights. And I'm going to go back to those darker points with my E29. And now I'm going to go with my E17, pulling out that color, still leaving it very streaky so I have that white, little bit of white showing. And I'm going to take my E23, we're going to do one swipe over onto the white areas. And I'm going to go back with my E25 and drag out the color a little bit more for the strands. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do her wing. Let's go ahead and take the E25, continue that line, and then going all the way up. And then we're going to take the E23, do one stroke over, so that way it has that transparent look. So we have one more to go, and we're going to be coloring her hair black. I'm going to be using my ends. You could use any of the grays that you have. I would just recommend skipping between colors, because using 10 markers on this little bit of hair, you are not going to be able to blend all those colors together. So I'm going to be using N9, N7, N5, and N3. I'm going to start with my N7. I'm going to trace these lines and add some more. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my N5 and do the same thing, just pulling it through a little bit, leaving a lot of white little gaps. So I know it's very repetitive, but actually coloring like this and doing the same thing over and over, it creates a habit, so that way the next time you go to color it, it won't be so hard because you've already got that routine down. So now I'm going to go ahead and go back with my N9 and deepen up those lines that we first made. And let's go with our N3. Do one stroke over, filling in all of the hair. And then if it's too dark, I always go back with one of my middle colors. So I would either go back with N7 or N5. In this case, I'm going to use my N5 and see where I am after I go back and add a couple little flicks here and there. because I don't want to add too much dark down when you're coloring black hair, because you want to be able to still see all those lines that we created, so you have that hair texture. So I am going to go back a little bit darker and use my N7. And I'm going to go back with my N3 just because it's still really light gray. So I just want to kind of touch it up a little and add that extra layer so it doesn't look so gray. Now I'm going to take my N5, connect these lines here and those ones, and just flick going all the way up so we can see that hair texture, and then take the N3 again and, oop, I went way over. So now you guys are in for a treat. I'm going to fix it. So I'm going to go back and cover it up. We're going to make it seem like her hair is coming out a little bit more. So this is actually a great way, because I always go back and fix my images. I never recolor them, and I don't like editing videos. So we're going to go ahead and act like we're going to make her hair come out a little bit more. So I'm using my N7 right now, and I'm just going to extend that hair back there. Now I'm going to take my N3, and let's take my N5, and N3 again. There we go. You can't even tell unless you're really comparing it to the other images. So I'm going to go back with my N5 just a little bit more, because I want to add a little bit more darkness right in here, just a little bit more of a shadow. And again with my N3. All right, so there you have it. We have colored all 6 of our little fairies. We learned about coloring hair and how to create texture and the different color combinations, and we learned how to fix a boo-boo. So I hope you enjoyed this month's video, and I will see you again next month. Have a wonderful day.